No, I am pretty infamous for a fucking mouth. The message on the front of here is for me to Natalie before she died. It was sent on July 30th of 2017. I'd been being abused since October of 2016. So it's closer to 9 months. But it was the end of October. All over Natalie Bollinger and her fucking junky friends, and not leaving me alone and pretending I did things that I didn't. And I've shown evidence that I did let Natalie know all the way back in November. In November of 2016, I unblocked her and I let her know that people were harming me over slander. That slander was started by Maddie Boa. Now, how much later after that did I try to make that profile to commit suicide? The Michelle Brannick profile. I made that in September. In September, I decided that I was no longer capable of living without seeing my loved ones or being able to take care of myself, being treated like a burden, being treated like a monster, being socially isolated and separated from my loved ones. The people that I was able to go see were, well, druggies. The rest of them tell me stuff like, oh, it's your fault, you choose to hang out with the druggies. Like, no, they're the only people who have ever tried to accept me. Them and schizophrenics and people who are severely fucking delusional. It's because I'm nice to them, because I grew up with a bunch of them. You know how difficult it is, though, when the only people that really interact with you in the average day are actually batshit fucking crazy? Meanwhile, this lady today got to realize that I'm intelligent. She doesn't have any idea what kind of a hole she just dug for herself by doing her job, or attempting to. Now, taking a look at the conditions that I live in is key. That has to be done. And of course, preservation of the evidence is of the utmost importance. These guys preying on my inability to do something is not the same as me not trying. And them just ignoring all of the evidence of me trying, and also all of the evidence of crimes being committed against me for trying. Like, wouldn't it be nice if I didn't have people breaking the law, harming me, harassing me, threatening me, talking over me? The lady with the Department of Health and Human Services, when she sees how much evidence I have, the thing is that once you looked at it, you no longer have plausible deniability, which she still currently has. If she looks any of the stuff up that she wrote down, then she won't have plausible deniability. What she'll have is the fact that she's looked at one side of it, but hasn't looked at any evidence. Just like everyone else. They haven't looked at any evidence. They haven't even looked at the pile of evidence here. Like, there's plenty of people who have walked by and seen it, plenty of people who I've tried to show it to. My physical disabilities oftentimes prevent me from being able to carry all this stuff, but I've taken the backpack into my appointments on more than one occasion. Nobody makes any attempt to do anything with any of that evidence, or to even look at it, or to try. A lot of people want me to, hey, well, why don't you show it to me? Well, I can if I have a device to do it with, but I have to record for my safety when I do this, so they don't operate under color of law, which is what they do anyway. Even knowing that they're being recorded, they are that brazen, because nobody cares. There are a lot of different types of abuse, and the fact that the abuse that I am enduring here, well, a lot of that abuse came from slander by officers. Dereliction of duty is a good one. You know what happens when you get dereliction of duty, don't you? Depends on which army you're in, I suppose. Now let's say that you are victimized because you're easy to victimize. You're different, you're weird, you're not good looking, you're intelligent, which basically means that most people, as we all know, as the saying goes, to stupid people, intelligent people seem like crazy people. To stupid people, what intelligent people are able to do looks like magic. He's got fire. So let's imagine that you're disabled and the person that you're supposed to go to for help, they're not helping. They don't care. They know that you're at high risk for being taken advantage of. And when you say, hey, people are taking advantage of me, they want to argue with you and take advantage of your communication disabilities. Don't ever fucking grill the goddamn victim. Let them speak. Otherwise, you confuse the situation, and you are knowingly, willingly, and intelligently doing so. Because that's all that's going to come of a complicated situation. You need to look at the evidence, not confuse the situation with 10,000 questions. Anything you are doing other than looking at the evidence or listening to the victim is not helpful. None of your words matter until you know what the fuck is going on. Now, these people operating under color of law has allowed a lot of evidence to be lost, stolen, or destroyed because these mandated reporters, rather than following the law, are making up bullshit excuses that are obviously not the truth. Where the hell is my lighter? Now, let's imagine that you had a friend who saved you from committing suicide when you had no other real friends. Everybody else was just a mouth. But this one friend actually came through. And when this one friend was suicidal over her family victimizing her, the people beat her, they raped her, they sold her to make a profit. They had her and her sister selling drugs. And all of their friends failed them. All of their family failed them. There was only one person in their lives who cared more about them than drugs or alcohol or sex, and that one person was me. There's only one person in her life whose only motivation was to see her loved and happy. And that one person was me. but her predators, the ones who pushed her to the point that she cut herself to ribbons before she and I ever met, up one side and down the other from abuse and neglect. And they all took advantage of her because they all wanted something. She was just entertainment to them. Just like I'm only entertainment to you. Now let's imagine that you go to sea and rescue more than one friend. You make it a vacation to go help the friend out who's suicidal, who says she's going to kill herself if you don't go. And when you go, you're still the person that you were before. But you're stranded there. All of your support network is now gone. You have to rely on complete and total strangers for help. You don't have any money. And you're stuck there. You did what you were asked. And then, of course, later on, you're treated like a horrible person when they insist that you go out for your birthday. You know, there's all of the messages between Natalie and I from before she died that show how wonderful a person she was to me. But also, she is the one who thought she was in love with me, not the other way around. But I get treated like I was just a stalker who only cared about her vagina. No, that's her dad. That's her Uncle Troy. That's Tim Beeson. They targeted me because I'm disabled. Instead of using the term mentally ill properly, they are mandated by law. If someone is called mentally ill, there are certain laws that they're supposed to follow with that person. And every single mandated reporter has failed. Every single one. Even today, I am out here at high risk of abuse, where my predators have access to harm me at any point in time, and I have to be afraid. I don't have a place to go through this. I don't have assistance going through it. That's why friends and family are so important. A friend or family member who cared to look at the evidence and fucking speak up at the very fucking beginning is literally all it would have taken to stop this. Hey, my friend is being fucking abused. Please help put a stop to it. But no, I'm not worth that to any of them. I never was. They say they love me to try to manipulate me. Like those people on the streets who call you family. Hey fam, don't fucking fam me, homie. Now when you've been victimized for over a year because you're disabled, well there, when I sent that to Miss Natalie, this is while Tim Beeson was threatening to kill me, and I'd gotten a hold of Veronica Bruce of Region 2, Nebraska. This is a friend of mine as well as a professional. And when I got a hold of her, this is Brenda Dickinson who told me to get a hold of her, who was also a mandated reporter. Well, she sent me to Missy because Brenda was retiring. She had rheumatoid arthritis and she couldn't take care of herself. And the rheumatoid arthritis was fucking up her ability to think. You get to see how a lot of other people wanted to use the fact that they had memory issues. Well, then later on, when I spoke up about them having memory issues, they treated me like I'm a horrible person for talking about their memory issues. Like, hey, if you're having memory issues, you need to fucking record it. Not tell me you're not willing to record it because it's rude. You are literally going out of your way to make it their word versus mine and your word versus mine. You have no proof of what you claim now. And all of these mandated reporters wanted to do that. So, this message to Natalie Bollinger, this is after 8 months of being threatened, having my life threatened, my loved ones' lives threatened. Her predators, like Tim Beeson, who was going to blow his head off, she had to take a lot of time that she was going to come see me. All of the time that me and her could have had a sit down and an actual conversation one-on-one. I mean, we would have still been in quasi-public, but it would have been a situation where her and I could have sat down and had a conversation as two people. Her sister was not going to let that happen. Me and her sister spent a lot of time alone and together, just her and I. And she told me she loved me as much as Natalie did. She was trying to get me a house there. Now, instead of an apartment there, she's the one who helped me get the job at Labor Ready. Even though I couldn't physically do it, I did try, and I overexerted myself, and I really was in such a horrible way. There was nothing I could do but pretend to try to be happy. I didn't want to bring Natalie or Alicia down, and I tried to do what they wanted. I got severely dehydrated. The messages between Natalie and I show that, but I was never allowed to show that in court. I was never allowed to show that to any of my public pretenders. They wanted to pretend the situation with Natalie had nothing to do with it. No. Police officers abused me across multiple jurisdictions because they were allowed to manipulate the situation so that I literally had to flee everywhere that I was at. Now, despite the fact that there is still evidence of that, the state worker that I spoke with today, Ms. Hampton, did not look at it and didn't make an attempt to look at it. We were waiting until Monday. I did go down to TFCC, and we've got the recommendations. We've got multiple recommendations sending me to TFCC, and still all they want to do is set up appointments for months down the road. No, that is not okay. This is frequent and ongoing abuse, and I have to be afraid of my predators harming me again. And for surely, if they are not harming me, they have and will harm others. Michelle Quinn is living proof of that. Vicki Peterson is living proof of that. Miss Olson of Chapel, Nebraska is living proof of that. Michelle Delaney is living proof. So is Sarah Nelson. Clearview is proof of that. When you allow predators to take advantage of the most at risk of our society, it only encourages them to do it again. That creates more victims. Case in point, Sammy Leon Lawrence IV, Zaid Atkinson, Natalie Bollinger, Benjamin Harvey, how about Joe Newman's daughter in Chapel, Nebraska? How about Rory Jepson of Chapel, Nebraska? How about Clint Snell of Chapel, Nebraska? Or Carl Snell of Chapel, Nebraska? Yes, both of them are, in fact and indeed, a couple of my predators from this. If they're willing to admit wrong and help to turn state's evidence, that's one thing. If not, well, I've got them both recorded on my channel. They might want to think about that, especially since slandering me in court is against the law. intentionally allowing these things to happen to an at-risk adult. With overwhelming evidence. Overwhelming evidence. But all they have to do is call me mentally ill, and magically it all goes away, and that evidence is somehow magically an illusion to the courts. There are things that you cannot do that officers thought they could. When I tried to go to other agencies because I was being sent around in circles just like I was yesterday and the day before, only to be threatened, harassed, and retaliated against for trying to turn in this abuse. In all of these situations, they should have contacted Adult Protective Services a long time ago. Instead of neglecting the safety risks created by them. This shows how one bad cop slandering an innocent person's name and committing a felony with their buddies can turn into a big fucking mess. Allowing the officers to coordinate across jurisdiction to prevent that victim from turning in crimes or assisting. That's right, I was attempting to assist the officers in Natalie Bollinger's case with doing what it is that they had asked me to. Instead, abused by the public and the Boulder Police Department wanted to repeatedly get in the way of that. There's a big difference between somebody not trying to do the right thing and being prevented from doing the right thing. All of the evidence shows that I have been trying since day one to show the truth. Now, you've gotten to see some of the threats and harassment both before and after Natalie's death on my channel. Stuff from Tim B. Stuff from fucking Maddie Boa. When I try to get help stopping the abuse, I get the, you're mentally ill. Yeah, exactly. You're using that as an excuse. You're not allowing me the rights of that. You're using it as an excuse to not do your jobs rather than to do your job. It's used to blow off the victim. But if you're popular or pretty, that mentally ill tag can be a benefit. Of course, that depends. See, the thing with Britney Spears is that by law, what all of her caregivers and caretakers have done is, by law, slave labor. Slave labor. She was forced to go on tour. Even if she wanted to, well, the fact is that somebody else was in charge of all of her stuff, what she could and could not do. If she's got a curator, then it means and denotes that she is too disabled to work. The laws that they broke because she was working. See, she was mentally disabled only when they wanted her to be, only when it benefited them. But the law doesn't work that way. Crooked courts, like we dealt with yesterday and the day before. Crooked cops, like we dealt with yesterday and the day before. So the screenshot on the front of this. People are taking advantage of your disabilities and harming you and using the excuse that you're mentally ill. running around telling people you're mentally ill. If you'd tried explaining that you were being harmed, you'd gone to law enforcement, you'd gone to your friends, you'd gone to the therapist, you'd gone to Region 1, you'd gone to Region 2, you'd gone to Veronica Seward, a.k.a. Missy Bruce, a.k.a. Veronica Bruce, of Lodgepole, Nebraska, currently of North Platte, Nebraska. She still works with Region 2. But like I said, when people been drinking, even if they're not a hardcore alcoholic, even if they're just casually drinking, if you catch them on the wrong day, well, they're drunk and they're treating you like you're a bad person because they're making bad decisions while drunk. I needed her to be sober in order to help me because I needed her help stopping abuse. I needed her help with finishing what it is that Tamara started. Helping me to get my disability and get the paperwork done so that they could stop literally ignoring my disabilities because I'm intelligent and then denying my intelligence because I'm disabled later on. All of these agencies are taking advantage of me by doing this. I'm intelligent only when it suits them. I'm mentally ill only when it suits them. Lucky for everybody, I record for our safety. Ours. But I am not in a safe situation and have not been since before Natalie was killed. It has been non-stop assholes taking advantage of me because they can, because I have no actual advocacy. These places aren't advocating for me. They're not looking at evidence or helping me to turn it in. And she said today that she could start working on it just based on what I said. Well, no, she can't. I mean, yes, she can. And she is, thank goodness. But the evidence is the most important thing here. The evidence is the most important thing because my safety is dependent upon that evidence. My safety is dependent upon whether or not I was actually, in fact, and indeed victimized. All of these places and agencies have gone out of their way to talk over me when I was trying to tell them information that would force them to have to do their jobs. All of these places know when to speak up. That lady today, part of working with somebody is giving them a little bit at a time. If I was to interrupt her to say, hey, the talking to me like I'm a puppy dog or a 5-year-old doesn't work. Especially when you do it a lot, like she was at the very beginning. But she started to get it and started to understand. I don't have a place to process it. That has been the problem this whole time. I don't have a place to process it or help doing so. I've had places that I have stayed, but they have not been appropriate. I'm sure quite a few of you who have been broke have stayed with friends or family that don't do anything but fucking yell at each other all day long and get drunk or get stoned and fucking make empty promises. Oh yeah, dude, I'm gonna stop smoking pot and get off my ass. Just let me smoke a bowl and I'll be ready. Just fucking A, god damn it. Oh, now it's video game time. Shit. Alright, maybe after the video games. Nope. Nope. When you're called mentally ill, you're entirely dependent upon others because you have no rights. These predators have gotten away with this by pretending that I'm not disabled so they can pretend I can do these things for myself. And then, of course, they can charge me with bogus crimes and take away all of the resources to be able to do those things for myself. And then they can call me mentally ill, of course, when it suits them to pretend that I am too crazy to know up from down, left from right, or my foot from my asshole. Forcing me to go to police officers who have committed felonies to try to turn in literally those officers is not okay. Preying on the fact that I have a whole lot of stuff that I have to remember. That it is a very complicated situation. If you don't stop to take a look at the complicated situation or the quantity of the abuse, you get plausible deniability, which that lady today has only in part. Because at that point in time, taking a look at the conditions that I live in, as well as taking a look at the quantity of evidence that I have to go through so that she can assess the damage. She's going to have to sit down with me, and I'm going to have to show her at least 5 or 6 situations with children and adults that were being abused, other than just me, that are quick and easy. Because those need to be turned in too. They affect this situation. There is a reason why, even if they don't want to hear it. People have motives, and those motives for harming others need to be looked at, not ignored and not glossed over. I can't stay in this parking lot too much longer. They're going to be closed pretty soon. I'm going to have to park in another parking lot that it's illegal to stay at night, and I have to be afraid to stay in. Thank goodness none of those people have called the cops, but if somebody decides to do that tonight, well, then I'll end up having a panic attack. I'll have to deal with cops that it's unsafe for them to be around me, and I don't have the ability to defend myself against them. I don't choose for homelessness to be illegal. None of us chose to be victimized into homelessness. It just happens. The less you have, the more likely it is to happen. The more disabled, different, ugly, short that you are, the less people are going to give a shit. And the older you get, the less people give a shit. For me, I have aged extremely horribly because I have lived out in a fucking horrible life. I have lived a stressful life. I have lived a loveless life. All the loves I've ever had have only loved one way. I love you or I don't. If I do love you, I can't turn it off. I'm not capable. I know what my little brother did and what a piece of shit he is. But I still love him. I know that my older brother, Eric, would never do such a thing. But that doesn't matter. There's people in Colorado who are accusing him of being a pedophile, and I believe that we should find out who those people are. Amy Valkyrie is one of them, and Sherman Watson is the other. If they're claiming that my older brother did something, where's your fucking victims? I want to hear from them. I want to hear from the victims. I want to hear actual victims. See, what Sherman Watson and Amy Valkyrie want to try doing to my brother in retaliation, that's harming my older brother in retaliation. That's trying to insinuate things about my older brother to retaliate without a victim. They're just making shit up to be fucking assholes. They're just making shit up as excuses to be pieces of shit to me. Now, it's okay for people to do this to me because I don't have a place to process the evidence. I'm not capable of processing the evidence without resources. And false charges eat up resources. Court dates eat up resources. And people who make false promises that they'll help you if you invest your resources into going where they tell you. This is literally killing people. This is killing people that I know. Natalie Bollinger, according to what's in her book, she went to hell. It's amazing how when people have committed a horrible sin and they're afraid of legal charges, they say, oh, well, I love the Jesus now, so he's going to protect me. The Jesus ain't protecting you. The rest of the schizophrenic wannabes in your bigots group are protecting you because you pretend to believe in their schizophrenic spaceman. Laura Nelson can try as hard as she wants to hide behind religion, but a fact is a fact. She's a Nebraskan. She's a mandated reporter. She was also involved in the situation both before and after Natalie's death. And she was involved in both Nebraska and Colorado in person on multiple occasions. She was also involved in Virginia over the phone and through messages. Same thing with Brenda Dickinson. If you're going to take somebody else's word over mine, I want you to take a look at the evidence and ask yourself why they told me something different than they told you. Or, if they told you the same thing that's recorded, why is it that you never helped to turn it in? Why is it that you left the victim hanging? Why is it that you allowed an innocent man to be persecuted by the public and continue to do so? Well, it's because you're all cowards, of course. You don't want to lose your jobs and shit like that. Mandated reporters telling me that they weren't going to do their jobs because they were afraid of losing their jobs. That's fucking fucked. Especially when those are friends of yours, you know? Like, no, I don't need two mandated reporters talking over me. What I need is a mandated reporter and a fucking friend or family member. Today, it would have gone a lot more smoothly if I'd have had a friend or family member who was there to help to communicate what's going on. Now, for me, being in a state of crisis, they like to pretend that you're a fucking job for that. No, that's long-term abuse that results in people being like that. Being so afraid that they have to literally scream for help. I need help protecting myself from law enforcement. Protecting them from playing that color of law shit. I need someone to go with me to my appointments. I don't have that. There were people who were supposed to do that. It was their job, their duty, and they were paid to do it. But they didn't. Here's the thing. Imagine that you've gone through all of the people that you're supposed to and been sent around in circles everywhere. Them knowing you don't have the resources, knowing you don't have the abilities, and rather than attempting to assist you like they are supposed to, they exploit your disabilities to help your predators get away. Your job as a mandated reporter is based on a very, very, very small window of time and trying to make sure that the victim feels safe. If they don't feel safe, then you're not doing your job. they're stuck being abused, and they're stuck out in public being abused, and they're stuck in public doing things that are not appropriate to do in public, but are absolutely necessary to turn in predators, that needs to be taken into account. Forcing a victim to go to their predators for help is never okay. I'm having to turn in police officers for their failure to report. I'm having to turn in TFCC for their failure to report. There's also the fact that they're taking money for the job, but not doing the job. Today, if I'd had a friend or family member there with me, I wouldn't have been allowed to leave there until they had my evidence, because I told them that there is evidence of child abuse. It's federally mandated they have to take my evidence and take copies of it. Do you think I didn't research the fucking federal laws before I got started calling the FBI? Holy shit, you guys are dumb. Did you think that I was unaware that the gun that the man was trying to convince me to make for him in Nebraska? Are you really going to believe that I am dumb enough that I started doing that without knowing full well that I was committing federal crimes? The other thing is that I was being blackmailed into doing it. I was being exploited. Because of the slander against me, a lot of people have been allowed to exploit it. My predators from before Natalie's death and the mandated reporters that I went to before Natalie's death are all going for the Fifth Amendment. For good reason. The thing is, it's already recorded. The evidence already exists. Whether they take the Fifth Amendment or not, they're going to prison. Several of these officers, like Lotham, he might very well end up in prison. For him to antagonize his victim the way that he did and do it by pretending to do his job, no, that is never okay. They know that I'm in a state of crisis and that I'm not going to be able to get my words right as long as I'm afraid. And they all exploit that. They all know that I need somebody there for my safety when this happens. And instead of doing their job by law to get a hold of APS, these officers have literally, without fail, every single time, refused to do their lawfully mandated job. Now, those of you in the UK, I want you to look at the language that I used there. This is after almost 9 months of abuse. 9 months of going to therapists, going to the police, going to my friends and family, going to therapists, going to law enforcement, going to my friends and family, going to the courts, who tell me that I need to go to the police, who tell me I need to go to my friends and family, who tell me I need to just let it go or I need to take it to the police, who tell me I just need to man up or they have real police work to do. Meanwhile, the crimes being committed against me accumulate, and they affect my mental well-being, and the physical assaults accumulate, affecting my physical well-being. and the resources that I have to expend because these mandated reporters are having me run around through mental health hoops where everybody's making a profit, but nobody's doing their job as a mandated reporter. That is the one job all of these people want to ignore. I am disabled. That's why I need a mandated reporter. But when the mandated reporter is taking advantage of my disabilities for profit, for your tax dollars, knowing that I am trying to turn in crimes against me and that my disabilities, as well as the crimes that were committed against me, prevent me from being able to even take care of myself. And then they want to have me expend those resources that I don't have to jump through a bunch of hoops that I cannot jump through alone. And by law, I'm not even supposed to. By law, the first time I told any of these people what was going on, they should have done something to help secure the evidence. I'm willing to go to prison for the rest of my life to see to it that this evidence is seen. However, what makes me suicidal is that this evidence is always in peril. The evidence. Fuck my life. My life doesn't matter, the evidence does. The evidence shows the corruption, and laziness is in fact their corruption. If they do a couple of favors for their buddies, it's fine. It's professional courtesy. When a police officer who committed felonies against you gets to lie to hospitals and tell them that you've been diagnosed with schizophrenia, so the hospital writes it down and you were at the hospital for less than 20 hours on a 3-day mental health hold because of suicidal ideations. Because I said, I am trying to turn in my predators instead of trying to commit suicide. But because I went alone, they got to manipulate my words into whatever they wanted them to mean and destroy evidence. Refuse to allow the evidence of the actual events, the actual phone calls. They literally went out of their way to omit any and all evidence and to allow me to be fucking tortured. And my evidence against the Tillamook Police Department and the Tillamook County Sheriff's Department and all of these agencies is in peril. There's also the fact that I'm being told to go back to TFCC, who is committing fraud against me, and I'm being sent back to TCCH. TFCC, that's Tillamook Family Counseling Center, and then TCCHC. Now, you see how complicated this is getting just with fucking initials? Come on now, use your fucking brain. I'm in a state of crisis because of ongoing abuse, including neglect, by mandated reporters nationwide. I wouldn't have to go to crackheads and drug dealers if mandated reporters would do their jobs. Meanwhile, it's not like I don't ask sober people. Of course, these mandated reporters just go out of their way to push the mentally ill, and ignore the evidence and sell their own narrative. That's what mentally ill is being used as. And to this day, the police have not once, ever done their job with Adult Protective Services. Not once, ever have they made any attempt. All because Natalie Bollinger was embarrassed because when her mom found her heroin in Virginia, she wasn't going to tell on her dealer. And when my vehicle broke down there, well, that was an excuse. The cops could have easily looked at both sides, collected evidence, and done their fucking jobs. Instead, they send me to mental health for mental health to do their jobs. Did mental health do anything about the safety issues and safety risks there in Virginia? Exactly what I told the officer who drove me to the hospital. Exactly what I told him would happen, happened. He told me if what I told him would happen, because he said my vehicle wasn't going to get towed and that my friends were going to keep it safe and that he was taking me to the hospital, that I wasn't being arrested. But I had already read the thing from the computer in the front that was still open that said that I was stalking a male resident. What male resident? Would that be Rose M. Kelly's current husband? It's actually Rose M.'s self, because the guy's last name is literally Self. He also looks like someone I know, but a lot of people do that this day and age. A lot of people look like somebody else I know. I saw a lady over at the Safeway the other day, and she looked like my old boss from Julesburg, Colorado at the Subway. Her name's Brianna, or Bree. And the lady here, she looked like Bree. She just was just about a foot taller. Now let's imagine that you're being accused of raping or molesting somebody that you didn't rape or molest, and that person isn't accusing you of raping or molesting them either. Instead, some lesbian who's got a crush on them is running around saying that you're a stalker and a rapist and a murderer and all sorts of shit. Well, they didn't say murderer until after Natalie was killed. But the thing is, the evidence shows otherwise. And while it's claimed that I didn't try to get help, I absolutely did try to get help. I was fucking stonewalled and blackballed. See, there's a reason why women use terms like that. There's a reason why Burton, for her, it's PTSD, but for me, it's I'm mentally ill and I need to get therapy. Like, no. I'm being sent to these therapy places because they're supposed to help and assist as mandated reporters. They're also not supposed to interrupt. Also, when it's this complicated, they're going to want to interrupt or they're going to get bored. And the more that happens, the more difficult it is to try to get the communication across. When I was talking to the lady at the Health and Human Services, I saw that she was texting. I also made sure that I talked through her texting. Now, maybe she'll retain it. Maybe she won't retain the information. But either way, it's recorded so she can go back and listen to it if she needs to. The self-advocacy stuff that I went through when I was younger and the McGruff stuff, it's almost identical. Almost. The same thing with the McGruff stuff and when you're an at-risk adult and you need to turn crimes in. It's nearly identical. But as an adult with no protections, nobody cares because you're a fucking adult. Nobody cares about your disabilities. You need to just man up. If you have no legs, you have an excuse because people can see that you don't have legs. When it's a back injury, you need x-rays. Where did I put my rolling papers? Anyway, I've shown screenshots between myself and Veronica Seward, aka Veronica Bruce, aka Missy Bruce, on here that showed that I did, in fact and indeed, get a hold of her before I ever tried doing a desperate maneuver like, hey, you stupid fucking cunt, call off the goddamn dogs. Because none of these agencies took it seriously. None of them investigated, allowing my predators to harm me repeatedly. And then these people assisted my predators in getting away with it. Scott DaCosta assisted Robert Franklin Warnick in threatening, harassing, and intimidating me by allowing him to get away with it. His deputies did the same. He also assisted Jared Hahn and Cody Selhorst in threatening, harassing, and intimidating me by sending them out, knowing full well that they had committed crimes against me, knowing full well that they weren't going to do their jobs. In the very beginning, they preyed on the fact that I didn't know how to record all this stuff and assumed that I wouldn't anyway because I must be a retard. Then later on, when I was able to record, well, they hadn't been paying enough fucking attention. And so they got recorded committing felonies. Now let me ask you, most of you guys came to my channel because you watched one of these web sleuth groups. You've only gotten to see or hear one side. However, if that kind of stuff was being said about you and it wasn't true, what kind of language would you use? How nicely would you ask somebody to stop the abuse after 8 months of going through hell, after 8 months of being assaulted and separated from your loved ones, having your friends and family threatened? They should never have threatened my friends or family. When you tell me that you're going to kill my friends and family, yes, you and I are going to have fucking issues. That is a statement of fact, not a threat. That is an issue. By definition, that is an issue. When you try to pretend that the entire English language is a threat against your life, you are out of your goddamn mind. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to find my rolling papers. Having to do this with a phone. It's not possible to do all this shit with a phone. But we do what we can. One thing that people can do is to speak up. They can make the calls with me. I understand that I have a reputation for putting people's phone numbers up now. I'm allowed. It's not against the law. And it's not against the law to threaten it either. If you're fucking scamming people, yes, I have the right to post it up on the internet. I have the right to post to the public about public endangerment. And that is exactly what these web sleuthers do. They make us all unsafe because they are unchecked. Police refuse to do their job because it would be too hard for them to do their jobs. Really. If only I had a microwave to microwave this up. It was actually pretty good at one point in time. Obviously, these police officers can see the conditions that I live in. Rather than making suggestions of what I should do, any suggestion that they make, other than getting a hold of Adult Protective Services and working together with them and I to make sure that this evidence gets to where it needs to go, is against the law. Literally anything else that they do is against the law. The only thing that they're allowed to do is to help me turn it in and make sure that my evidence is safely processed, because I am incapable. I am incapable because of the abuse, because of the assaults, because of the threats against my family and my friends, and the desperate things that I have had to do to flee the abuse myself and to try to make them safe, to try to prevent them from becoming targets of opportunity. A lot of people tried to accuse me of killing people that I didn't kill and was nowhere near. But a lot of people were cruel over that. Every time Alicia Bollinger disappeared, it was fucking drugs. Specifically methamphetamines. Repeatedly, she was busted with methamphetamines. Even on a high-speed chase through multiple states with her father. And 18 grams of methamphetamines. Through Oklahoma and Kansas. They did that on my birthday, October 18th, 2019. What a shitty present. Yeah, I'm mad at Alicia, but I love her, and that fucking scared the hell out of me. It scared the hell out of a lot of people. I am still scared to death of Alicia Bollinger, and I'm also scared to death for her. I can't be alive when Natalie's sister passes away. I can't be alive when that happens. I won't be able to handle it. Forcing me to fight back. That's not okay. Just leave me the fuck alone. I'm not interested in a fucking fight. But it was either social isolation or physical violence. And even in that social isolation, I had to deal with people getting a hold of me and threatening to kill me and my family. The false narrative that my predators sell is different from the actual situation. And if any one of my friends had actually given a shit enough to try, this could have all been stopped all the way in Virginia. Jesus fucking Christ. Alicia or Natalie could have stopped this at any point in time just by being honest people. They're not real Christians. None of them are. Neither is Laura Nelson. She's a coward. At least she's a coward that's been recorded. So the world knows she's a coward.